recording. All right, so this is our second night of segment 2. Thanks for being prompt and arriving on time. I really appreciate that. We have our 2-hour session this evening, and then we'll have the 2-hour session tomorrow night. For the third night of class, we'll be going over a little bit more material that we don't get to tonight. And then we will also be taking the test. So there's a 20-question test that we will take in our class session tomorrow. And I believe you all have at this point signed up for either a 4 to 6 o'clock session or a 6 to 8 o'clock session. We'll be at the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Tecumseh. So arrive a little bit early so we can get you situated in the classroom and get started so we can be out on time at the end of class. Does anybody have any questions for me about how that's going to work tomorrow night? All right. So let me make sure I've got the chat window open. And Juan, I'll need you to make sure that your camera is on. Okay. As soon as you can, make sure you're getting your camera on, and we're going to get started here. So we left off in a video yesterday. I'm going to go back just a little bit inside of the video. So make sure that you have this quiz open on your screen. Make sure this quiz that I have on the screen, make sure you have this open and you're looking for these questions that are present inside of the video. So let me make sure I got everything set. Are you all able to see the video on the screen right now? Give me a thumbs up if that's okay. Good. And we'll make sure we're getting audio too as we're going.
So one of the things we do, we put grease paint on the...
He runs a vehicle research center and is one of the foremost...
Are you guys getting audio for it? Okay.
...most experts in the world on vehicle safety.
Where the dummy hits. We use the term crashworthiness to describe the protection a car offers its occupants during a crash. Now, crashworthiness is a complicated concept because it involves many aspects of vehicle design. The structure, the restraint system, it all adds up to this single term we use, crashworthiness. We use the stripped-down body to illustrate the concepts of good and poor structural designs for modern crashworthiness.
Brian, why is it important for the vehicle structure to perform well in a crash?
Well, this is what's left of the body and structure of a car that was in a crash, and we use this to illustrate the point. Basically, we want the occupant compartment or the safety cage to remain intact. We don't want any damage or intrusion into this part of the vehicle during the crash.
Okay.
We want all of the damage of the crash confined to the front end.
So even though all this metal looks the same, it's actually different. The green metal is intended to crumple, to give in the collision.
If we can crumple the front end of the car without allowing any damage to the occupant compartment, then the people inside can be protected against serious injury. Basically, we want the front end to be buckling during the crash so that the occupant compartment is slowed down at a gentler rate.
Right. Kind of like jumping off of a step and keeping your knees straight and landing on the floor versus bending your knees when you land.
Exactly the same concept. So this is a vehicle that did well because there's very little intrusion anywhere in the occupant compartment. These elements here, even though they're strong enough to hold an engine and suspension, actually buckled and crushed just like they're designed to do. So the damage is confined to the front end. We look at a vehicle like this, and this is an example of a very poor safety cage. This is a 40-mile-an-hour crash. As you can see, that the occupant compartment has collapsed. It's been driven backwards. As a result, the driver's space has been greatly reduced. So someone sitting in this vehicle is obviously at a high risk of injury.
So even if the restraint systems do function properly, the airbag, the seat belts, the person is still in great danger.
This person in this vehicle, even with a belt system and airbag, is at significant risk of injury because the compartment is collapsing.
So it's analogous to shipping a box to China. You can have all the best packing in the world around the China, but if the box is weak, you're going to break the China.
When the safety cage collapses, you're going to have injuries to the occupants. So this is an example of poor crash worthiness. But this vehicle was in the same crash, 40 mile an hour, offset crash,
Right.
and you can see that now the safety cage has remained intact.
Right.
There's very little intrusion anywhere. The damage is confined to the crumple zone of the vehicle. This is the way it should be. A person in a crash like this, wearing their seatbelt and protected by the airbag, can walk away from the crash with no injury.
Right. If I stand over here and I just look towards the rear of the car and I ignore the airbag, this doesn't even look like it's been in a crash.
That's right. This is good performance, good crash worthiness.
In our shipping box analogy, this is an example of a strong box.
That's right. The people in this box will be protected.
Brian, obviously this car performed well, but what's in the future for crash worthiness?
This is an illustration of how good we can do with frontal crash worthiness, but frontal crashes are only part of the problem. We obviously also have to pay attention to other crash modes, and one of the most important is the side impact crash. Now this is a vehicle that was in a severe side impact crash. This vehicle was going 20 miles an hour sideways into a pole. And as you can see, in a side crash, you don't have all the crush space you have in a frontal crash. We just have the width of the door and the padding, and in this case we have an airbag on the inside which creates even more space. We inflate the airbag to create more crush space, and we also have an inflatable airbag to provide head protection up in this region. This deploys from this roof area here. So the physics are the same, the engineering challenges are greater.
I am always looking for ways to relate the physics that I teach to the real world that my students experience. And nothing is more relevant than traveling in an automobile. You probably do it every day. I hope that makes the message of this film important to each and every one of you. I've always believed that if a person truly understands the laws of physics, that person would never ride in a motor vehicle unbelted. And now that you've had a chance to learn some of the finer points of the physics of car crashes, I hope you agree. I also hope you've learned why some of the choices you make about the type of car you drive and the kind of driving you do can make a difference in whether you survive on the highway. Remember, even the best protected race car drivers don't survive very high-speed crashes. The bottom line is the dynamics of a motor vehicle crash. What happens to your car and you is determined by hard science. You can't argue with the laws of physics.
Okay, so let's check over these questions that we had from this particular video. And we will, I know some of these questions you might not have picked up from inside of the clip, and there's some of them that I want to talk about a little bit. So have the questions open in front of you. And if you're not sure, that's okay. Make your best guess, make the best guess that you can on it, and then we'll talk about these questions. All right, Jalen Belent, did I pronounce your last name right?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to have you answer the first question. Which of these physics principles is the primary reason that drivers should wear a seatbelt?
Inertia.
Inertia. Yeah, if you remember from the very beginning of the video clip last night when we got started, they were showing the dummy on the back of the truck, and the truck takes off and the dummy falls forward. That principle that a body in motion is going to stay in motion is one of the important principles of driving, physics principles of driving. That's is very important. So if we're traveling in a vehicle and the vehicle comes to a sudden stop, we're going to also come to a sudden stop. So what is it that's going to stop us? We want it to be a seatbelt. All right, Lauren, let's go to you for question number 2. A vehicle's momentum is made up of 2 elements. The first is its mass. And what is the second element of momentum?
I put something down, but I don't know what it is because I'm really bad at spelling.
Okay.
I forgot what it was.
if we're talking about a car, I'll give you a hint, all right? If we're talking about a car has momentum coming into a crash. What are the things that are going to impact a vehicle in how hard it's going to hit something? One of the things that they say is the size of the vehicle, the mass of the vehicle. But what's the other thing that we would want to think about as to how hard that vehicle is going to strike something? It has to deal with your pedals, the brake pedal and the accelerator.
The force.
Well, that's part of it. Yeah, you're creating force, and the way that you create more force is with speed. Okay, so if part of it is mass, the size of the vehicle, the second part would be velocity or speed as that second component. Now, what we're doing, Lauren, is creating force. Okay, so we're creating force in momentum. So you're on the right track with that. But that second element is speed. Bella, I'm going to give you the story problem question. Number 3. If you got a semi truck which weighs 80,000 pounds and it's going 2 miles per hour, why does the semi have the same momentum as a 4,000 pound SUV going 40 miles per hour? Why do you think that is?
Because the impulse is the same.
Right, their momentum would actually equal each other out, right? You've got a semi that's going really slow, but is very heavy. You've got an SUV that doesn't weigh as much, but is going very fast. So 80,000 pounds times 2 miles per hour equals 4,000 pounds times 40 miles per hour. So their momentum would actually balance each other out. We're not going to do an actual test to see what would happen if a 4,000 pound SUV runs into an 80,000 pound semi. That would be pretty messy. But the laws of physics would say they have equal momentum there. Lila, what is question number 4? What is it that changes a vehicle's momentum?
Impulse.
An impulse, yeah. He uses the illustration in the video of the tennis racket hitting the tennis ball. Tennis ball's moving this way, the racket comes and strikes the ball, and the ball has an impulse. There's a moment there, and the ball then goes in another direction. So that is what is going to change a vehicle's momentum. Juan, let's go to you for question number 5. A heavier car has the advantage primarily in what type of crash? Question number 5.
B.
Yeah, crash with a lighter vehicle. So a heavier vehicle has the advantage over a lighter vehicle. Gabe, can you explain to me why when the host threw the egg at the wall, he explained the egg thrown at the sheet didn't break? Why did the sheet allow the egg to come to a rest without breaking the shell?
Because the sheet like kind of protected it like cushioned it, like kind of like the crumple zone in the car.
Yeah, exactly right. You're absolutely right. Did the sheet make the egg stop?
No.
Well,
yes, but
yeah, it did, right? It did. But what's the difference between the amount of time it takes the egg to stop versus the brick wall and the sheet? Which one takes longer to stop the egg?
the one with the sheet.
Yeah, absolutely. So your connection of that to the crumple zone is right on. That's the fundamental principle we want you to understand here from this, is that the longer your crash can go on, the longer time you have for the duration of the crash, actually the better. We want this to, we want that crumple zone to slow down the crash. We don't want there to just be a sudden stop. A sudden stop is what's going to have the greatest damage to you inside of an accident. You remember at the beginning of the video clip, they show the two cars crashing into a wall? You've got the two race cars that crash into the wall. One of them, the driver makes it. The driver walks away from the accident. The other one, the driver is carried away from the accident. That's because the car that had the longer accident actually allowed the driver to survive and make it through that collision. So we kind of already answered question number 7. Gabe, you did a great job in answering that. Why did the egg thrown against the wall break immediately? It's that same concept. If the sheet allows more time to stop the egg, the wall provides less time to stop the egg, but it stops it more suddenly, and that's a greater damage possibility. They use the illustration of the egg, but really it's of great danger to us as passengers in the car. All right, Jack, let's go to you. What technology have engineers started to build into cars to protect drivers from side impact collisions?
So I didn't really see this, but at one point I saw side airbags.
That's it. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Side airbags that they're building into the car. Jack, I'm going to stay with you actually, because the next question is kind of related directly to it. So they're building side airbags in. You're right. Why would it be so hard to protect drivers from the side?
There isn't as much more things to serve as crumple or cushion.
Yeah,
It's like just very little on the side.
Yeah, you've just got the size of the door. So we just went through an inauguration in our country, and one of the things that happens at the inauguration is you get to see the new president and his Secret Service detail. You'll see the president in the inaugural parade. He'll walk down, the street away from the Capitol building, go on a parade. And then at one point, the president will get out of the parade and get into the limousine, the presidential limousine. Does anybody know inside of this class what the name of the presidential limousine is? Anybody ever heard the name of this before? Do you know what the name of the presidential limousine is? It stays the same regardless of the president. Anybody know what it is? Nobody so far. All right. It is called the Beast. The limousine is called the Beast. And it is actually produced by GM. They make a Cadillac limousine for the president. And this vehicle is particularly designed to provide a fortress around the president. When the president is in that car, the president is in a very safe location. And one of the things, Jack, you pointed out, one of the weaknesses that are present on cars is that it's hard to protect from the side. If you ever get the chance to look at the door of the president's limousine, notice just how thick that door is. It's not like a normal door. When they open it up, you notice that thing is super heavy. It is very thick, and it's designed with this in mind. The doors are one of the weakest areas on the vehicle for us. And so the president's limousine actually has reinforced, strengthened doors to make sure that if they got into a side impact collision, it would still be a safe, there would be safety built into it. Christian, let's go to you. Question number 10, what's the safety technology that's built into the front framework of cars?
I didn't know this one. I didn't get it.
Okay. Paige, let's go to you. What's the technology that they build into cars?
I didn't get that one either.
Okay. It might have been right at the point where we were switching from dropping out of the video last night and coming into the video today. So if you didn't get this one, let me talk to you just a little bit about this, because this is super important. It's called the crumple zone. The crumple zone is this area. And this is fascinating technology that's present on a car in the way that they build the car, the way that they engineer the car. They actually make some of the steel framework on the front of the car designed to break, designed to give on impact, so that when that steel makes contact with something at high speed, it's designed to crumple and break. And that is built into the car so that it slows down the collision. As that steel is crumpling, it's actually lessening the amount of collision that you, as the driver, actually have to feel. Okay, Olivia, which of these, question number 11, which of these is the primary way that safety engineers are attempting to make car crashes less hazardous to the vehicle occupants?
B.
B, embedding technology in cars so the car absorbs more of the impact. Very good. You want the car to absorb the impact. You don't want the driver to have to absorb the impact. I have talked to people who, when I was growing up, when I was a kid, I can remember people talking about the strength of their cars, the strength of how tough their car was. And you would have people that would talk about how the really sturdy frame for this car. And they would brag about the fact that when they got into an accident, the car could be rebuilt and be put back out on the road. But the challenge was, if you're looking at a car from the 70s or the 80s, those can be really strong cars, but they're not safe, particularly for the driver, especially if they get into an accident. Because while the car can be rebuilt, when that car got into an accident, the driver felt the whole force of the accident. So today's cars are built with the driver in mind a little bit more, so much so that when you get into an accident, it's not a big surprise to me when I find out that somebody's car got totaled in a fairly minor fender bender, because the car is designed to brake a little bit more so that the driver doesn't have to feel the impact of this. All right, Melody, let's go to you. Question number 12. There are two factors that are combined to create a vehicle's kinetic energy. Can you tell me what those two factors are?
I actually did not get this one.
Okay. It is, if you had to factor in, if you had to take a guess on what is going to drive the energy of the vehicle, if we were going to measure the energy of the vehicle, what's something about the vehicle that we would want to gauge on this? Gauging the energy of the vehicle.
Possibly momentum.
Yeah, exactly. And do you remember what the elements of momentum are?
I have no idea.
It's over on the other column. A little farther up the page. Question number 2, a vehicle's momentum is made up of two elements. The first is its mass, and the second is its velocity. Well, guess what a vehicle's kinetic energy is made up of? Mass and velocity. So that's an easy one to remember. Jesse, let's go to you. If you double the speed of a car, what have you done to the vehicle's force of impact in a crash?
See, quadruple.
Yes, that's right. Thank you. You've quadrupled it. The force of impact is 4 times greater. Seth, how would you define crash worthiness?
The structure of the car.
Structure of the car, yeah. Nick, how would you define crash worthiness? What else would you say about it? Seth said the structure of the car, but what else would you say is involved in crash worthiness?
How it protects the person.
Absolutely, yes, very good. So Seth, that structure is super important. It's going to be something we look at when we're in a collision. Nick, you're right too. How is it protecting the driver in the car? The overall concept here with crash worthiness, when they're looking at the crash worthiness of a vehicle, how well does that car do in a crash? And that's going to involve the structure. It's going to involve the driver, how the driver is protected in this way. Thompson, let's go to you. Question number 15. Why didn't the china on the table fall off and break when the tablecloth was pulled out from underneath it?
I don't even know. I didn't write anything down.
Okay, have you ever seen that before, where somebody's got something set on the table, they pull the tablecloth out? I've seen a magician do that.
Yeah.
I've seen a magician do that before once.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. It's actually a physics principle, though. It's not magic. It's a physics principle. It's called inertia. So a body at rest tends to stay at rest. A body in motion tends to stay at motion. So the reason why he's able to pull the tablecloth out from underneath the china on the table and the china stays where it's at is because inertia is keeping that body at rest. It wants to stay at rest. Okay, so let's go now to the next page and we will talk about the science of car crashes and the engineering that is present inside of our cars. So if you have the opportunity to get your own car once you get your license, that's an exciting time. Half of young drivers Half of young drivers are not driving the types of vehicles that are recommended for them. What are the recommended types of vehicles? Mid-size and large passenger. So right here, maybe circle this phrase, mid-size and large passenger. If we had to make a recommendation to you for the type of vehicle that you should have, it shouldn't be one of these little cars. These little cars aren't going to provide you much protection. They're not going to provide you the ability to resist the intrusion of a crash. And remember, yesterday we talked about how the most dangerous time, the time when you run the greatest risk of getting into a car crash, is during these early years of driving. And if you're going to have the greater chance of getting into a car crash during these early years of driving, then this little car is probably not the car for you to pick if you have the choice. Now, you may not have the choice. It may be a situation where it's like, this is the car we have, this is the car we're going to drive. And that's fine. That's okay. I'm not saying that it's not going to work out for you, but it is something you want to be careful of. You want to be really careful of. And if you have a choice, you want to choose a mid-size or larger passenger vehicle. In fatal crashes involving young drivers, of the vehicles driven, 50% are 10 years or old or older. 82% are 6 years old or older. That's primarily because most of us are driving older cars, especially when you first get your license. You may get the opportunity to have a brand new car. I didn't. I had a really old car for my first car. It worked great. And I ended up, that car didn't last too long. The engine ended up seizing up on it. And I was sad to see that car go, but it was my first car. And it wasn't a great car, but your first car is always a really special car to you. And a lot of times those are going to be older cars. They're not going to be the perfect car, brand new car. So many of us are driving older cars. It means we need to think about, with the older car, how do we make sure that that's a safe situation? How do we make sure that where we're driving and what we're driving is safe? If we're driving a vehicle that's a little bit older, it may not be as safe a vehicle. And so it's something that we need to be careful of. The other things, this over here on the right-hand side of the page, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration gives a safety rating for cars. And they've been doing this for decades at this point. So chances are you're buying a car that's probably within 10 to 15 years old, and there will be National Highway Traffic Safety Administration ratings on it. And you should pay attention to those to see how the car did. This is checking the crash worthiness of the car. National Highway Traffic Safety Administration doesn't work with Ford Motor Company or GM or Chrysler. They're independent. They're third party. They check to make sure and then report on how Ford and GM and Chrysler are doing with their cars. And if you find out that you're getting ready to buy a car that NHTSA said was just a terrible safety pick, it may be a great value to purchase it, but it's not a safe car. You shouldn't buy it. You should pay attention to what they said in that year with that make and model for the vehicle. Check out the crash worthiness of the vehicle. And if you just did a quick search for NHTSA safety ratings on Google, type in the make and model of the car that you're looking at, you get a ton of information really quickly. That would just let you know how safe this vehicle is. The other factor to consider when you get your first vehicle is that you're going to end up having more opportunity to drive your car. You're going to take more risks. You're going to be putting more miles on your car. Chances of you receiving more traffic violations starts to go up. That increases. Your chances of being in a crash, those are also going to go up. Now, this is compared obviously to those people who don't have a car and are borrowing maybe from a parent or a grandparent. And if you have to borrow from a parent or a grandparent, you might be looking at that car not so much as yours. And so it might evoke a little bit of caution inside of you as you go about the task of driving. Okay, so we have 3 questions down here. I want you to take a second and work on these questions. Your friend has just bought a new car, wants to take you for a ride. He or she is driving through your neighborhood at 20 miles per hour over the speed limit. What would you do? So go ahead and tell me one thing that you would do in that situation. And then tell me 2 safety features that you would be looking for on a car when you're researching the crash worthiness. 2 safety features. And then one measure that you can take to safely drive an older vehicle. So one for the first one, two for the second one, and one for the third one. Okay, Emmy, let's start with you. If you got into a car with a friend of yours and they wanted to show you how cool their car was and they were going 20 miles per hour over the speed limit, what would you do in that moment?
I would probably tell them that normally residential is about 25 miles an hour, so they should slow down.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, they just got to be aware of their conditions and surroundings. And you don't want to be in a car with somebody who's acting irresponsibly, even if it is a cool new car. So yeah, remind them to slow down in that moment. Let's see here. Colin, let's go to you. What's a safety feature that you would definitely want to be looking for on a vehicle when you're looking at the crash worthiness?
What year it is.
What year it is? Why would that matter? How would you use that information?
The newer ones have the side airbags.
Okay. Yeah, very good. You'd want to be looking for you're going to look for a car that's got updated safety technology on it. That's a great, great answer. Lila, how about you? What's something that you would look for when you're looking at the crash worthiness? What safety feature would you look for?
Probably like past history of those type of cars.
Yeah, yeah. Look to see what's going on with that car, what's happened to that car. Sometimes I was listening to another driving instructor talking about getting cars from the salvage lot when he was younger. He used to get cars out of the salvage lot, fix them up, and fix up the sheet metal on it, and then sell it. And those cars might have been in a terrible accident, but he could make them look like they weren't in a terrible accident. So you got to know. So Lila's right. You got to look to see what's involved, what's happened to that car over the past. Jalen Holstein, what's a safety feature that you would look for?
I said if the seatbelts aren't like all tattered or whatever.
Right, yeah, you want to make sure everything's working properly inside of the car. And boy, if you're seeing worn out safety equipment in the car, that's probably not a good sign. That's a car to stay away from. Seth, how about you? What's a safety feature that you'd look for?
The year and if there's side airbags.
Okay, all right, very good. Nick, the third question was what measures can you take to safely drive an older vehicle? What do you think? What would you recommend to somebody if they're getting ready to drive an older vehicle? What's something they could do to make it safer for them?
I don't know. Maybe I don't know.
All right. Hunter, how about you? What's something that somebody could do to make driving an older vehicle safer?
Make sure everything's working, like check their tire pressure and airbags.
Yes, absolutely. That's great, Hunter. I would recommend if you're getting ready to buy an older vehicle, that you go to a mechanic, have them check it over. And then Hunter, you're right. Make sure the tires are in good working order. They should have proper tire pressure. You know, a lot of problems can be solved just by making sure your car's in good working order. All right. Open up my participants here. So Mr. Wright, we just lost somebody out of the meeting. I wasn't, I didn't see the name there. Okay, let's talk about car crashes and weather, the impact of car crashes and weather. 81% of car crashes are going to happen during fair weather conditions, 81%. 72% of car crashes are going to happen on dry road surfaces. 16% happen on wet roads. 10% happen in the rain, 7% in the snow, 4% on icy roads, and 2% in the fog. Now that's really interesting because that seems backwards. That seems the opposite of what I would expect. It seems like driving in fair weather conditions on dry road surfaces, that we would have much less accidents. And it seems like we'd have a lot more accidents in the fog and on the ice. So Jack, what do you think's going on here? Why do you think there's so many accidents that are happening in fair weather on dry roads and not as many accidents on icy roads and foggy days? What's going on?
Oh, I think people just don't pay as much attention since everything is fine and it's clear out and it's not icy. And then when it's icy, they're a lot more careful on the roads and they're paying attention.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you, Jack. I think that's a huge factor in it. It's kind of like if you're walking through a room and the lights are on versus walking through a room and the lights are off and you're not sure if there's anything in front of you. As soon as you start to walk through that room and it's dark and you're not sure if your little brother or sister left some Legos on the floor and you're not sure if there's a table in front of you, you all of a sudden start looking like a crazy person walking across the room because you get really careful. Versus walking across the room when it's light and you can see everything's fine. You're not thinking about it. You don't think about it. Well, the same is true for us when we're out on the road. We tend to let our guard down. But when it's icy, when it's foggy, we get a lot more careful. We start to pay a lot more careful attention to what's happening. All right, so let's do one strategy that you can use to manage visibility, time and space, and inclement weather conditions. And we already kind of answered the second one, so I won't make you answer that one. Jack gave a good answer there. The answer I would be looking for is we pay more attention when the weather is bad, and we should be paying attention in all kinds of weather. Melody, you want to help us out here? What strategies can you use to manage visibility, time, and space in bad weather?
I said that when you can't really see well, you can look for the lines on the road, which will help you like see where you are on the road.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. That was not the answer I was expecting, but that is a fantastic answer. I like that answer. Look at the lines on the road. Those lines are on the road to help you out, and especially when you're in bad weather conditions. So thank you for saying that. That's great. Olivia, what's another strategy that we could use in poor weather conditions?
make sure that you have like your lights and everything on, and maybe like turn off like or drive slower and like turn off the radio so you can focus more on what's going on outside.
Yeah, those are two great answers. That's great. Having your lights on in bad weather is ideal. That's the right thing to do. And then having the right lights on too, right? Like if you're driving in a snowstorm and the snow is just coming down really fast, having your brights on is just going to blast the light right back into your eyes. If you're driving in fog and you turn your brights on, you won't be able to see as well. But if it's clear, it's just dark and visibility isn't great, then that's when we use our brights. And then Olivia mentioned another thing that I think is good. You need to focus. You need to pay attention. If you got something that's distracting you, like music on the radio, turn it off. Make sure you're focusing and paying attention to the quiz to the road that's in front of you. Okay, so we have review quiz number 1. I'm going to give you a few minutes to answer these questions. If you don't know the answers to 15, 16, and 17, that is okay. Just make a guess. We have not covered those yet. They're kind of preview questions, but I will give you a little bit of time. Once you have the quiz done, hop on the chat and let me know. Just say done in the chat so I know that you have completed it.
Mr. Matson.
Yes.
Emmy said that she got kicked out and she
Yeah, she just got back in. Thank you, though.
Yeah, it let me come back in. My Wi-Fi is kind of terrible, so.
I had a rough day with Wi-Fi too. I understand. We are taking the review quiz right now. Review quiz number 1. If you want to take some time to fill those out.
Okay.
If you need to go back and look at the notes from the earlier section, that's fine. See what you can do without looking, though. right, looks like we're almost done. Almost everybody's done. I'll give you another 30 seconds to wrap up here. Okay, let's go over these questions. Let's start with, who do we want to start with? Jalen Belent, we'll start with you. Question number 1, what 2 days of the week did the highest number of traffic fatalities occur?
Friday and Saturday.
Friday and Saturday, very good. Lauren, question number 2, who gets in more crashes?
Males.
Males, rate of 2 to 1. It's not even close. All right, Bella, let's go to you. 1 out of every how many 16-year-old drivers will be involved in a crash?
11.
11, 1 out of 11. Melody, question number 4, the largest category of error in young driver fatal crashes is?
I said not signaling.
Well, that's bad. That is bad. There's one that's even worse. The larger
Speeding then.
Speeding, yeah, speeding. But do make sure you use your signal too. Question number 5, the most dangerous time of the day to drive is when?
For me?
Sorry, 1.
Oh.
We can't hear you, I'm sorry. 2 to 5, is that what you said? 2 to 5 is the correct answer. I'm not sure if that's what you said. I couldn't hear you. Okay, good. All right, yeah, 2 to 5. Gabe, let's go to you. Question number 6, the highest number of driving related deaths occur in what 2 months of the year?
I think it's May and August.
Close. May and October. May and October. All right. Jack, we already had number 7. The greatest number of driving related deaths occur on Friday and Saturday. That was an earlier question. I'm going to skip to question number 8 for you, Jack. Question 8, the majority of driving related deaths occur during what part of the day?
Daylight.
Daylight. Good. Christian, let's go to you for question 9. A majority of crashes occur on what type of road?
Straight.
Straight road. Good. Paige, question number 10. In fatal crashes, approximately how many of those killed were people other than the driver?
I can't remember, so I'm just gonna say C.
It's close. It's close. You were very close. 2/3. A. 2/3 of those killed were people other than the driver. Olivia, before buying a vehicle, you should research what?
Crashworthiness.
Yes, crashworthiness. Very good. Colin, question number 12. It is true that oops, I said it. Sorry. You better get that one right, Colin, because I said the answer. It is true that a majority of young driver crashes involve 2 or more vehicles. Yes, Colin, that's true. That's a true statement. I'm going to give you the next question, and I'm going to try not to read the correct answer when I'm reading the question. Okay. A majority of young driver crashes occur in what type of weather, Colin?
D.
D, fair weather. Yeah, most crashes happen in fair weather. Emmy, let's go to you for question number 14. What percent of young drivers involved in fatal crashes were not wearing a safety belt?
13%.
13%, too high. All right. This next question we have not talked about yet. We will. So question number 15, the human brain does not fully develop until the age of 25. 25. Number 16, drivers using a cell phone are 4 times more likely to crash. 4 times more likely. And then the state of Michigan came up with a word. It's very clever, but it's not a real word. But it's meant to push home the facts that texting while driving is the same level of distraction for a person who is intoxicated with alcohol or drugs. And so they say driving while texting is a violation that is known as driving while intoxicated. Intoxicated. It's not a real word, but it might appear on a test. They like to put that kind of stuff on the test. So it's a good one to know. All right. Thompson, 11% of 16 and 17-year-old drivers will be involved in a crash during what years of driving?
3 years.
First 3 years. Very good. Seth, a driver makes how many observations in every mile driven?
100.
100. Very good. And we haven't covered this one yet, but a driver's eyes are off the road an average of 5 seconds while texting. 5 seconds. So we're actually going to talk about that just a little bit here as we continue on. We're going to start talking about factors behind car crashes and the neuroscience behind them as well. Okay, so hands-free devices on our cell phones are not going to provide us the ability to not be distracted. Hands-free devices offer no safety benefit when driving. In fact, hands-free devices do not eliminate the biggest level of distraction. What's distracting to you about your phone is not the thing that, manipulating it with your hand, typing something into the phone. That is a distraction, but that isn't the biggest distraction. The biggest distraction is that you're thinking, you're reading, you're listening, you're talking, you're engaging, your mind is engaging in that task. And so that's going to be the bigger distraction for us when we're operating the vehicle. Your mind has to be fully engaged with the task. I told you the story last night at the end of class about the runner that I encountered on the road. Thank goodness I wasn't distracted. I could have been distracted. And if I had been distracted, I wouldn't have seen that runner at the last second and been able to respond. We want to be able to respond to something at a moment's notice when we're on the road to make sure that we are prepared for it. So let's talk about cell phones just a little bit here. The average time that your eyes are off the road while you're texting is 5 seconds. So when you text, you might be able to type without looking, but it's hard to read the text without looking. So when we read a text, when we take our eyes off, put their eyes on the phone, majority of time, it's 5 seconds. And 5 seconds isn't that long. You're probably driving for a lot more than 5 seconds, but when you're traveling at 55 miles per hour, in 3 seconds, you're traveling 250 feet. So you're traveling nearly the length of a football field. And I don't think you would be comfortable driving your vehicle across the distance of a football field without at least looking to see where you were going. That is a really long distance. So it has been shown that cell phone use impairs the driver's ability to handle changing driving environments, similar to a person who has a 0.08 blood alcohol concentration. So a person who has a 0.08 blood alcohol concentration is not safe to be on the road. It's not because they can't actually manipulate the controls of the vehicle. They can. They can steer the car. Their foot can press down on the accelerator. Their foot can press down on the brake. But what a person who's intoxicated, a person who has a 0.08 blood alcohol concentration, what they don't have is the ability to make judgment calls, the ability to make good decisions. They can't do it. They just simply can't. And they also will have some inabilities physically as well. I mean, it will reduce your coordination. It will cut down on your ability to respond as quickly as a person who isn't intoxicated. But the biggest problem is the mental element of it. It removes your ability to make decisions. And that same thing is happening to us when we use our cell phones. You're not able to make good decisions because you're making decisions about something else. You're using your phone. So drivers using a cell phone are 4 times more likely to crash, regardless of whether it's hands-free. So just because you're not picking up your phone you're still engaging in a mental distraction, and that's something that we need to be very careful of. Distractions are going to be made worse by the fact that you're inexperienced as a driver. This is why we do this class. It's why we take this opportunity before you get your license to remind you you're getting ready to do something dangerous. And so don't let any distractions that are available inside of the car take away your attention from this very serious task you're doing. And a cell phone is going to be a big distraction. When I talk to my 16-year-old daughter about her cell phone use versus how I use a cell phone, I feel very dependent upon my phone at this point. I feel like I feel a little awkward if I walk out of the house and my phone isn't in my pocket. But the difference between me and my daughter when it comes to our phones is that if she leaves her phone at home, we're turning around and we're going to go get it. It's just, you know, her day is not going to happen if she doesn't have that phone. If I leave the house and my phone isn't in my pocket, I'll go, oh, this is going to be interesting. But I'm still going to try to do the day. I'll go into the day and I'll see if I can make it without my phone. That's not how she thinks. That's not how she lives her life. And the way that she is connected to her phone is much more intense than it is for me in that way. And I find that I'm very connected to my phone. But on top of that, the connection that you have to your phone, the dependency maybe that you have on your phone, is going to make it really hard for you when you're inside of the car. You're used to immediate communication. You're used to the ability to communicate instantly with anyone at any time for, you know, in unprecedented fashion. As we have gone into remote learning sometimes, you know, the idea that you would be taking a driver's ed class from your home, we wouldn't have even considered that 2 years ago or a year ago. We wouldn't have even considered it. Now we have the ability to make this happen and to make it happen fairly seamlessly for us. But your ability to communicate with each other has moved you into a place where communication is something that registers with you. It's instantaneous with you. And that's going to be really hard. It's going to be a challenge when you're inside of the car to say, I don't need to do this right now. I don't need to text on my phone right now. The other aspect of this is that our brains are developing. And as a young person, your brain is not fully developed until you're about the age of 25. Ladies, it's actually a little bit better news for you, because for women, their brains actually develop a little bit sooner than men's brains do. So for some men, it's not even until they're in their late 20s before their brains are fully developed. Now, does that mean that you can't make a good decision? No, I don't think that's the case at all. But I do think it's something that you need to factor, that you need to consider. I'll give you a good example. I'll hold off on that because we talk about brain development a little bit later on. Okay, so here we go. Here's the state's word intoxicated. Reading a text message or sending a text causes a driver to be more impaired than talking on a cell phone. And this is called driving while intoxicated. There's that word. It does appear on one of the versions of the test. There'll be a couple versions of the segment 2 test that I pass out tomorrow night. And I believe one of them has intoxicated on it. So you might want to highlight that word, circle it, make sure you know it, come back to it. All these numbers are fair game on the test. And if we're talking about it in class, you need to make sure you're ready for it on the test. Your task management decreases by 39% when you're listening to someone talk to you. It doesn't matter if it's a person on the phone or a person that's sitting in the car with you. Your ability to manage tasks is going to decrease in this moment. So my guess is that you prefer a little bit of distraction sometimes when you're doing your homework. Give me a thumbs up if you like to listen to music while you do your homework. Give me a thumbs up. Okay, yeah, quite a few of you. How many of you, give me a thumbs up if you like to watch TV while you do your homework? Who has the TV on or has something playing on the screen? Sometimes, Jalen, you do sometimes, Paige? Okay, so Paige, do you actually watch what's on the TV while you're doing your homework or do you just listen?
I just listen to it.
Yeah. So yes, yes, just background noise. So yeah, I do that too. If I'm doing something and it doesn't require all of my full attention, I'll have a TV show on that I like, and I'll just have that playing in the background, and I'll watch it occasionally. Um, I'm kind of a weird guy. Sometimes what I like to watch on the screen, I'll watch. Netflix has it, and there's some on YouTube actually. I really like to watch the like 8 hour long videos where they put a camera on the front of a train or on the front of a ship, and they just like go through interesting landscapes. I just have that playing on the TV screen while I'm working, and for some reason it calms me down. Is it distracting to have TV on? Is it distracting to have a screen on? Well, sometimes in a good way. Sometimes in a good way. It'll kind of like keep you focused while you're working. But the reality is that our brains can only handle one thing at a time. So if I look up at the screen and I'm watching what's happening on my TV show, I'm not actually thinking about what's happening on my homework that I'm working on at that point. So our brain only handles one thing at a time. And so this is our ability to task manage doesn't actually allow us to do two things at once. Sometimes we think that we can do two things at once, but our brain actually can't. What it can do is move very quickly from one task to another. So sometimes that's good for us. Like when we're doing a task and we start to lose focus, having something else to like trigger our brain to keep thinking, to keep active is a good thing. That's a positive thing for us. But when we're driving, we need to make sure that we are staying focused and there aren't distractions to us while we're operating the car. So we need to be careful that we're not trying to multitask and think about too much while we're driving. The most dangerous time period for a young driver is the first 6 months of their unsupervised driving. Why is this true? I'll tell you the reason why, and we don't have it in the book here, but I'll give you my opinion on it. Why is the first 6 months the most dangerous time? It's because there isn't anybody telling you at this point what distractions are too much, and you have to learn that. A lot of people learn that the hard way, and they learn that the hard way by actually finding out that, oh, that was too much for me. I should I can't handle that while I'm driving the car as well. All right. Lila, if Emmy reaches out to you, just tell her to keep trying to get back into the meeting. We'll let her back in if she messages you or anything. Well, did she message you last time? Okay, all right. So just watch. If she can, let's have her try and get back in to the meeting. So it should be your goal to eliminate all in-vehicle distractions before the driving begins. So things that you can do to eliminate distractions inside of the car. This is by no means an exhaustive list, but secure all loose items, especially your phone inside of the car. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have the phone inside of the car, but you do need to make sure that it is secured. You don't want that loose in the car. I've heard about people that are driving down the road and something slips down into the seat underneath them, down by their feet, down by the pedal, and they're trying to reach down by their accelerator pedal, down by their brake pedal to pick up their phone or pick up a French fry that they dropped or pick up, whatever they dropped. That's really bad news because it's hard to maintain control of the car while you're reaching down by your feet. So secure all the loose items inside of the car. Any of you ride around with a dog or a cat in the car with you? Does anybody do that at your house? You do? One, is it a dog that yeah? Do you put the dog inside of a crate or you just let the dog wander around in the car? Yeah. We have, we used to have a golden retriever, and that dog did not understand personal space. When we would be driving down the road, the dog would always want to get up in the front seat and it would forget that it was a huge dog. So, my wife would have to sit in the back seat with the dog and make sure that the dog didn't climb up into the front and try and sit on my lap because he just didn't understand personal space and that I need to be able to see the road while I'm operating the vehicle. You got to make sure like your passengers are properly buckled in. Make sure if you got little kids in the car that they're properly buckled in. Make sure that's not going to be an issue for you as well. Adjust your seat gears. Make sure that all of the driver controls are set and properly in place. Don't wear headphones while you're inside of the car. They block important road sounds, particularly emergency vehicles, ambulances and fire trucks and police cars, and we need to be able to hear them. We need to be able to respond to those appropriately. The more time that you can get to practice, the more time that you can be with somebody who is supervising your driving, the better. It's a better chance of you surviving inside of what's going on in the driving task. So the more that you can be involved in practicing with your parents and being out on the road, the better the situation is going to be for you. I know you guys are busy. I'm a busy person too, and we got to be careful that what we do while we're out on the road, we're not driving while we are really tired or fatigued. If you're starting to feel fatigued, make sure that you check and see that you're safe to be operating the vehicle. Don't drive when you're super tired. It's just a bad idea. And make sure that you, if you're starting to yawn a lot, you need to make sure that you're safe to operate the vehicle. If you're having a hard time focusing on what's going on with the driving task, if you find yourself rubbing your eyes, blinking frequently, that's something you need to watch out for. Personal distraction. I would say texting is one of those distractions that's going to be one of the bigger areas of concern for us. It's dangerous because it falls into all three types of distractions. You've got the manual distraction of what you touch with the phone. You've got the visual distraction with your phone. You're reading something on the screen. You've got the cognitive distraction, the mental distraction. So you've got what you perceive, what you remember, what you judge, what you process. All of that is involved in the distraction of a cell phone. And that's what makes texting just so very dangerous for us while we're operating the vehicle. All right, so last night I realized, I talked to Mr. Wright at the end, and we realized I never took a break last night. You guys pushed through really well. I appreciate that. I'm going to give you a 5-minute break here. If you need to use the restroom, let's do that now, because I started to notice by the end of class last night, quite a few of you needed to use the restroom by the end. So let's take a break right now. It is 7:08 by my time. I need you back here at 7:13. If you want to turn your camera off for a little bit, you can, but 7:13, be back and ready to go. Hey, Mr. Wright, did you know who that was that joined at the last second there? Did you see that person?
Say again?
There was somebody who joined our class for like 2 minutes. It was somebody with last name Chrysler.
My mom joined because it kept logging me out. So
Okay.
she wanted me to have like a backup, but I told her no, so she left.
Okay, great. That works.
Sorry.
I wasn't sure who it was, so that's great. Thank you.
It's a good time for you to get up and stretch and get out of camera view as well.
Yes, you're absolutely right. So, Mr. Wright, have you seen any of those videos I was talking about, the ones where they strap a camera to the front of the train and like drive through Norway up to the Arctic Circle or around Oslo? Have you ever seen those before?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah. I watch those when I'm need to stay focused on something, but those things are so relaxing for me.
You might need it after trying to conduct your classes virtual.
Well, I'm running it right now, actually. Yeah, it does kind of provide you a little visual distraction there. I had a rough day with the internet. I was trying to, I had like a 25-minute talk that I needed to do with one of my classes today. And I got kicked off the internet probably 3 times.
Oh, no.
Oh, so every time I came back, they were still there.
Yeah.
They were talking, having a good time without me, but
yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, they talk a lot more when I'm not there. So
I can't get my freshmen to talk at all.
It's like, well, maybe we should just do class without me. Then you guys would actually talk. So
there you go. Send me a version of it. Good.
Yes, tell me what you guys talked about.
Yeah. Hey, Jalen, are you going to bowl this year? I know you're there.
Kind of.
Fans going around. She's eating, but she's not talking. Yes. Are you going to bowl this year? Are you going to do bowling?
Yeah, I think so.
You think so? Okay. I talked to Coach today, and I asked about numbers, and the numbers are way down. So I was just curious if you were going out.
All right, let's turn our cameras back on. We need to get started again. Mr. Wright's going to take attendance here as we come out of break. He takes attendance at the beginning of class. And if we take a break and then at the end of class, he's checking to make sure we got a report that everybody's here and staying with us. You guys are doing a great job, by the way. I appreciate the way that you're paying attention. So I want to show you a video clip here. I like the idea behind this video clip because they kind of approach it from a unique perspective. It's called Driven to Distraction. One of the things that they're going to show you inside of this clip is how distractions end up having an effect on us that we cannot necessarily anticipate, and how distractions are around us and don't necessarily negatively impact us every time, but then they do get us, and when they do get us, it's really bad. And so we need to be careful of distractions and make sure that distractions aren't the reason why we can't stay focused on the road. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to list some distractions from the video that could interfere with the person driving. And there's in-car distractions and distractions outside of the car. So there's a couple of examples here: cell phones, passengers, construction crash scenes. I'd like you to give me 7 in-car distractions that you see inside of this clip. And there's a bunch of them that are here. So 7 distractions that you see inside of the car, 7 distractions that you see outside of the car. And we'll go over some of those after this is over. Is the video up on your screen? Can you give me a thumbs up if the video's on your screen? All right.
was really something back there. Did you see it? Both drivers dead. Middle-aged man, young woman in her early 20s. Her whole life in front of her. Not anymore. I just wanted to watch for a minute. I suppose you could say it's my ego, admiring my work, you know? You see, I was in both of those vehicles right up until the brakes locked up. I'm all the things that people do or think about doing when what they ought to be doing is driving. I'm your cell phone. I'm your MP3 player. I'm the quick glance into your briefcase or your purse. I'm every distraction, every stray thought, every momentary glance away from the road. I'm all those things, and I'm riding along in almost every car and truck on the road nowadays. I'm sitting inside the thing from the moment you buy it. Standard equipment, like airbags. I ride along with practically every one of you, almost every day, helping the law of averages catch up to people like those two. That's all it is, the law of averages, playing the odds. After all, every time you let me distract you, you're playing a percentages game. And the percentages always catch up with you sooner or later. Ask anyone who ever stayed in a casino for just one more hand. I've got to admit, that is one of my better efforts. Not just because of the immediate loss of life and property, although that is a respectable bit of damage, but it's not even over yet. Look back there. See how the police have the lane blocked? They're steering all the traffic around it. Every one of those drivers is looking over at the wreck. Who wouldn't, right? They're not watching the policeman, or, you know, the road. They're too distracted. I'm very proud of that. But hey, I shouldn't take all the credit. Most of it belongs to our two drivers. That little car right there, the driver's name was Allison Reese. Allison was 21 years old. Good kid, sweet kid. Her folks didn't have the money for her to go away to college, so she was in her second year at the local community college, studying business. She also worked about 30 hours a week at the local pharmacy. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays, she would babysit her twin cousins while her aunt was at work. Still living at home? Well, she was. Right about now, her parents are answering the door. Police officer asking if he can come inside for a minute. After all sorts of people suffer from any automobile accident, whether they were in the car or not. The other one was Oscar Thompson, 58 years old, technician for Fabtech Industries. Goes from plant to plant checking the equipment, inspections, calibrations, that kind of thing. Worked a lot of double shifts, especially late shifts. You know, times when the equipment can be down for a little while. Lived alone, except for a little dog he took in a couple years ago. Beagle mix named Wally. In a little while, Wally is going to start wondering when someone is going to feed him. Oscar and Allison were both busy people. My favorite kind. You see, the busier someone is, the more often I get to ride with them. And this is a great time in history for me. You know, 50 years ago, I didn't ride with as many of you. Fewer cars, shorter trips, and nowhere near as much to think about. Sure, maybe a car had a radio. And yeah, sometimes I could talk someone into not paying attention while looking for an address. But nothing like nowadays. So many more cars, so many more interesting distractions inside the cars. My work gets easier every year. And I rode with Allison and Oscar almost every day, reminding them of all the things they needed to do. And today was no different. Here, I'll show you. Let's turn back the clock to earlier today. Okay, right now Allison has just finished her hours at the pharmacy. She's got a couple errands to run before her nighttime accounting class. Her boss kept her working a few minutes late to double-check some inventory paperwork. She knew she wasn't going to have much time to make it to class, but she didn't complain. Remember, I told you, she's a good kid. Hey, Allison, you know how your teacher is about latecomers? You better hurry. Come on, go around this guy. Good. Now, what are the 3 formulas you're supposed to have memorized for tonight? Do you know them?
Total compensation equals C. The total number of man hours worked equals W. Time. Or something like that.
You see? It's so easy. Too much for her to think about, too little time to get it all done. Rush, rush, rush. You people make it so easy for me to get into the car with you. The thing is, you never realize how lucky you are most of the time. You have no idea how demanding driving a 1-ton vehicle at a mile a minute is. Do you know that every 2 miles, the average driver makes about 400 observations and makes about 40 different decisions based on those observations? And for about every 40 decisions, they make a mistake. They usually don't even recognize their mistake because it usually doesn't amount to anything. But they add up. Hold on a second. Hey, Allison, don't you think you should call your folks and let them know that this class usually runs late? You wouldn't want them to worry.
Hi, Mom.
I love cell phones. Love them. They've proven in study after study that cell phones affect you the same way that a couple shots of hard liquor do. They slow reaction time. They limit your focus. And the studies have proven that it doesn't matter whether the phone is handheld or hands-free. They're all equally dangerous.
I'm on my way home right now.
But people who would never dream about getting behind the wheel drunk have no problem using their cell phones while they drive. Anybody who does that is working for me. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you. I'm thankful for anything that takes your eyes or your mind off the road for just 2 seconds. That's all I need. 2 seconds. Sometimes even less. You make enough 2-second mistakes, and I win. 60 miles per hour is 88 feet per second. Even when you're paying attention, it takes between 1 and 2 seconds for you to recognize a problem, and another second or two to react. Which means that most incidents eat up the entire length of a football field, even if you do everything perfectly. If I can take your mind off the road for even 1 extra second, that 88 feet can be huge. Just because most of those mistakes don't amount to anything, doesn't matter. My job is to help you make enough mistakes so that we have what's called the inopportune moment. Inopportune means inconvenient or untimely. And an inopportune moment isn't necessarily something that you create. But if you open the door and invite me in, well then. You're the only one to blame for that. The one time that you're glancing at your cell phone when the vehicle in the other lane blows a tire. It's not your fault that the tire blew, but it's 100% your fault that you took your eyes off the road.
Love you too, Mom. All right, bye-bye.
People always talk about luck, but when you're making dozens of mistakes all day long, you're taking luck out of the picture. Take some coworker. She's texting her friends while driving, and she gets into an accident. Surprise, surprise. And then she says, this is terrible. The officer said it was because I was
texting. But I text and drive all the time. I just had a moment of bad luck is all.
I love that. Keep telling yourself that, because the truth isn't that you had a bit of bad luck. The truth is that all of your good luck has finally run out. Almost. So here I am in the car with Allison. I've got her reciting formulas, making cell phone calls, pretty much thinking about everything except the most important job she has at the moment, the safe operation of her vehicle. You have to remember, Allison's not the only one I'm riding with today. I'm riding with almost everyone out here. But for today, the other really important driver was Oscar. Remember I said that Allison made my work so easy? Well, Oscar is a bit of a pushover himself. For one thing, working all those late night shifts, he never gets any sleep. Boy, it sure is going to be good to get some shut-eye after this shift, huh? What did you get yesterday? 3-4 hours? He's so tired, and that by itself does great things for me. But it's all the other stuff that people do to help themselves when they feel drowsy, because the only really smart thing, pulling over, is the last thing they're going to do. They play music real loud. Which of course takes their eyes and mind off the road. Maybe a cup of coffee will do the trick. Hey, Oscar, you don't look very alert. Have a cup of coffee. Whoa, almost. And now you throw in the pagers beeping, the cell phones ringing, and it's like I'm the one driving these vehicles. And Allison and Oscar are just little machines cranking out a mistake every few seconds. And when a couple of those mistakes come together, well, this is one I'm especially fond of. I was driving home with this guy, and this guy was really angry. And a pickup goes flying past him on the right, which is, of course, bad driving. And the intelligent thing to do when on the road with a bad driver is to give him plenty of space, right? But this is what I love about anger. Anger usually pushes intelligence right out the window. So my angry friend floors him to catch up with this pickup. And on the back of it is one of those little bumper stickers, how's my driving, call 1-800 blah blah blah. So I suggest to him that he should report this guy. So here's this pickup doing at least 15 over the limit, and my angry friend pulling up way too close, squinting to read all those little numbers, and then he only needs one more little nudge. I put into his head that he should report this guy right now. So he pulls out his cell phone and starts trying to enter all those numbers. Of course, later on, talking to the police, my angry friend is trying to explain that the reason the nose of his car is in the bed of the pickup is that the other guy slammed on his brakes too fast. There were no major injuries, which was a disappointment to me. But it was still a good piece of work. Anger, following too closely, staring at a bumper sticker instead of the road, using a cell phone. You people are so helpful. Anyway, back to our story. Allison is stressed out but finally on her way to night class. Her car is now about 2 miles away from Oscar's, who's headed to another plant. 2 minutes, give or take. Hey, you're not going to do well on your quiz if you're totally stressed out. Where's that CD you like so much that always calms you down? Now they're about 90 seconds apart. I've got to get these two together. The North Side plant, the press inspections. What's the name of that street again? Is it Westway or Nestway? Boy, what crummy handwriting. Is that a W or an N? And now in Allison's car, she's found her music. Let's keep encouraging her to do things for herself. Hey, that cute guy in accounting class has been checking you out lately. You're gonna need some lipstick. Whatever you want is always in the bottom of the bag, isn't it? Keep looking. You'll find it. The road's right there. It's not going anywhere, and there's no car in front of you. And while she's adjusting the mirror, putting on her lipstick and looking at it instead of the road, we need to give one more nudge to Oscar. Wait a second. Weren't you out to the same plant 2 months ago? And the shift supervisor couldn't get his hands on the work order and it turned into this whole big thing? You don't want to go through all that again. Is this the same place? Do you still have the work order from 2 months ago? 20 seconds now. Time for the final touch. Something in Allison's car that she didn't even cause to happen. Oh, great. You don't have time to answer your phone. Just check caller ID, see who it is. Go ahead, look. Allison's eyes go to the phone. That's a second. Oscar drops his clipboard. Papers go everywhere. That's a second. The cars are about 8 seconds from one another. Oscar reaches for his papers, and it causes his truck to drift. Allison's eyes are on her phone and takes the turn too wide. Oscar glances up, knows this is bad. Another day, another dollar. I couldn't do it without you, you know. There are so many ways to keep me out of your car, and so many reasons to do it. You already know most of them. If you're tired, don't drive. If you need to check a map or your directions, wait until you can pull over. If you own a cell phone, either ignore it, or if that's too hard, turn it off before you get in the car. After all, studies have shown that drivers who talk on cell phones are as accident-prone as the ones who drive drunk. If you're going to want a particular CD or MP3 file, find it and load it before you pull out of your driveway. Don't take your eyes off the road to talk to your passengers. And don't stare at your kids in their car seats. You buckle them in, they haven't gone anywhere. Don't eat or drink while you drive. Because like I said before, driving is a dangerous full-time job with dozens of critical decisions to be made every minute. You and your ton of automobile are often covering 88 feet per second. Every time you allow your mind to wander, you're just gambling, hoping you can beat the odds. And someday, you'll gamble and lose. If you keep letting me ride along with you, then someday the inopportune moment will come. And when it does, you won't be the only one who suffers. It's really one moment that becomes a lifetime of pain and loss for a number of people. Of course, it doesn't have to be that way. Look at how the smallest adjustment can make the biggest difference. Like Allison and Oscar. Just one less mistake would have saved both their lives. Imagine Allison's cell phone being turned off. Now she doesn't hear the incoming call, so her eyes stay on the road and her car stays in her lane. She sees Oscar's truck drift, so she slows down. When he overcorrects, he comes into her lane, but it happens 73 feet further away because she slowed down. He regains control in the nick of time.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
But it didn't happen that way, did it? So you see, It would be so easy to keep me out. But you don't want to keep me out. You like me. You like your distractions. You like your cell phones, your MP3s, and your coffee. And shoot, you've been driving for years. You can take a second to fix your hair. You can't live without me. But I can promise you this. You can't live with me either. I'll see all of you real soon. Sooner than you think.
All right. So one of the things that I like about that video is they talk about the fact that distractions don't necessarily always equal that you're going to get into an accident. It's kind of the combination, the coupling of all of these together. Jesse, tell me one in-car distraction that you saw inside of this video clip. What was an in-car distraction that you found?
I said doing makeup.
Yep, doing makeup in the car could be a big distraction. Lila, what's another one?
If you drop papers,
Yeah, dealing with paperwork in the car is always a bad idea. Bella, talk to me about a distraction outside of the car. What was a distraction outside of one of their cars?
Road rage.
Road rage, yes, very much of a distraction. Paige, how about you? What's a distraction that you saw outside of the car?
Like signs and like the stickers on the cars.
Yes, yes. Especially when he was driving so close to that guy that was going way too fast so he could prove the point. So lots of distractions that are present. Let's keep moving on. I'm going to move past this and we'll start to talk about the psychology that's present inside of our car crashes. So your emotions end up having an inevitable effect on the way that you think. So when you're angry, when you're happy, when you're sad, when you're excited, all of these different emotions are going to impact the way that you think. And your emotions can actually lead you to take greater risks. So if you're angry about something, you might take a risk that you wouldn't take if you were really calm. And when you're angry, you're actually going to look at that and realize it's going to make sense to you in a way that it wouldn't make sense if you weren't experiencing that same emotion. So we need to be careful of extreme emotions because it's going to have a big impact on how we relate with other drivers on the road. And I've noticed this in myself. I've noticed that this is actually something that I have to be careful of for me. So if it's a Sunday afternoon and I don't have anywhere to go and I'm not in a rush and the guy in front of me is going 10 miles under the limit, I respond to that much better than I do if it's a Monday morning and I'm late to work and my kids made me late to get out the door and I'm already frustrated. And then if this joker in front of me is going 10 miles under the limit, that's going to hit me in a different way at that point. Nothing really has changed about the circumstance. It's just my emotional response to it. So some of the emotions that we need to be particularly careful of are self-imposed anxieties, like, oh no, we're going to be late. That's not anybody else's fault but yours. That's a self-imposed anxiety. It's something that we bring on ourselves. So I live fairly close to the school that I teach at, just a few minutes away. But I used to live about 25 minutes. I had a pretty long drive to school every morning. And every morning I would go out, get in the vehicle, and I'd have to, I have 3 daughters. I'd get them into the vehicle and we would have 25 minutes inside of the car. And it would, on some days, that was anxiety producing for me because there was just a lot of tension that was present in the car, especially if somebody was getting in the car late or if somebody forgot something and they realized halfway to school and I had to say, we can't turn around, we got to just keep going at this point. All of that can create anxiety and it has an impact on the driver. You going to school in the morning, driving yourself to school in the morning, when you get that license, you get the car, you start driving to school, all of that stuff can start to have some real impact on your anxiety And that can actually lead you to making bad driving decisions while you're out on the road. So self-imposed anxieties are something we need to be very careful of. They are strongly associated with aggressive driving. So what happens when I'm running late? When I'm running late, I tend to want to push other cars. I want to drive faster than I should. I want to make riskier driving decisions because I want to fix the problem, which I view as the problem is me running late. That's really not the problem in this moment. The problem is that I can't respond appropriately. I need to respond appropriately to this. So self-imposed anxieties can limit a driver's ability to fully concentrate on the road because they're too focused on what's the condition or circumstance that's present inside of their mind. So we said that they're strongly associated with aggressive driving. Aggressive driving is driving that is selfish, it is bold, it is rude, it is pushy. It's not necessarily targeting another driver, but it's not necessarily treating other drivers with respect and giving them space and making good driving decisions out on the road. So aggressive driving behaviors is just riskier driving. You're jumping back and forth between lanes, you're following other cars too closely, you're not following traffic signals. Do all of those things mean that you're going to get into an accident every time you do those? No, not necessarily. But your chances of getting into an accident significantly increase when you start to practice aggressive driving. So we have this little diagram here, this kind of linear relationship between aggressive driving and road rage and what's in between those two. And above aggressive driving, we have the term misdemeanor, and above road rage, we have the term felony. So can anybody tell me what is the difference between a misdemeanor and a felony? Let me raise your hand and tell me what's the difference between those two. Yes, Emmy, what do you got?
Isn't kind of like a misdemeanor when you're really like taking action in it, like it gets physical?
Well, a felony could involve pretty physical violence too. Between the two, I'll give you guys a hint. It has to do with the punishment that you get. Juan, what do you know about this?
So like a misdemeanor isn't as, I mean, it's still like it's not a criminal charge, it's above a criminal charge, but it's not as bad as a felony. And a felony can go on your record and you can't vote, you can't get guns, and you can't do a lot of other things.
Right. A misdemeanor is like a less serious criminal charge. A felony is a very serious criminal charge. And like Juan said, the felony sticks with you for the rest of your life. So it would have impacts on your ability through the rest of your life, even after you've been out of prison and you have served your time. There's still consequences associated with a felony charge. A misdemeanor, you're going to get a sentence in jail, anything up to a year. So anything over a year would be a charge of a felony, and you'd be serving what they call hard time. You'd be in prison. For a misdemeanor, those people are usually serving their time inside of a jail. So in Adrian, we have the Lenawee County Jail. It's over by the sheriff's office, right behind the old courthouse, and actually behind the new courthouse, which is actually a fairly old building. The Lenawee County Jail is for housing inmates who are serving time for misdemeanor offenses. The Lenawee County Jail is actually a unique jail because it has a maximum security capability inside of it. So they can actually house inmates inside of the Lenawee County Jail from the Gus Harrison Correctional Facility. They have people inside of the Lenawee County Jail that are serving time there on felony charges and are going to be there for more than a year at a time. If Gus Harrison, which is the prison over on the east side of Adrian, if that fills up and they need more beds, they need more space, they can use the Lenawee County Jail. Lenawee County Jail has a capacity of about, I think, like 280 people. Don't quote me on that, but it's around 280 people. And they're typically, the majority of people that are housed inside of the Lenawee County Jail are there on driving under the influence charges. They're there for the 90-day offenses, and they're going to serve 3 months in jail, and then they're going to be able to go on their way. There is a huge difference between a misdemeanor and a felony. And Juan, I'm glad you brought up the fact that the penalty for a felony continues beyond just the time that you spend in prison. There are effects that happen for that person for the rest of their life. So if you get a felony charge, that's something that you have to announce every time you apply for a job. You're going to be restricted from certain abilities like owning a handgun or being able to vote. So there's consequences that continue with it. But the reason why we bring this up is because what is the difference between aggressive driving and road rage? What's the difference between aggressive driving and road rage? Road rage is a form of emotional and physical retaliation which seeks to harm another person. But look up above where it says aggressive driving behaviors. Look at the behaviors of a person who's driving aggressively. They're speeding, they're jumping lanes, they're following too closely, they're disobeying traffic signals. Could all four of those things lead to another person being harmed? Absolutely. Somebody could get in an accident because you were speeding. Somebody could get in an accident because you were jumping between lanes or following too closely. Did you get in your car that day, if you're driving aggressively, with the intent to harm another person? No, not necessarily, but your actions could lead to harm for another person. So who gets to determine if what you did was aggressive driving or road rage? A lot of that is going to be up to the investigation of the police officer, and it's going to be up to the court. So if I get into a situation where I behave inappropriately behind the wheel, I'm driving aggressively, I'm jumping back and forth between lanes, and because I'm driving aggressively and not making good driving decisions, somebody gets hurt in an accident or somebody dies in an accident. I can say to the police officer all I want. Hey, I wasn't trying to target them. I wasn't trying to harm them. That wasn't my intention in it. But it's going to be up to the court to determine whether or not the charges that are brought against me are a misdemeanor, aggressive driving, or felony road rage. And the difference between those two is huge, and it involves the same type of driving behavior. So we need to come to this task of driving, understanding that you could be faced with serious consequences for your decisions. You need to recognize that the choices you make behind the wheel have potentially lifelong implications for you. So aggressive driving occurs when an individual commits a combination of moving traffic offenses so as to endanger other persons or property. National Highway Traffic Safety Administration identifies a distinction between the traffic offense of an aggressive driving and the criminal offense of road rage, which is defined as an assault. So if they're able to identify that what you were doing with your vehicle was intentionally targeting another vehicle, it's going to move to road rage. And when it moves to road rage, that is a much more serious offense for you. You're looking at possible prison time, and it's a much more the implications are much longer for you, something to be very, very careful of. So aggressive driving is not something that is unusual. We see it quite a bit out on the road. If you look at this chart that we've made of the trucks that are on fire, 51% of drivers indicate that they have tailgated another driver on purpose. That's a fairly common one. It's not safe at all, but you see it a lot out on the road. 47% have admitted that they've yelled at another driver. 45% have used their horn. 33% have admitted to using angry gestures. And then as you look at these numbers, you see all the way up at the top, the smallest number, 3%, have rammed or bumped another vehicle on purpose. That's getting to the point where you are targeting, you are assaulting another person. So nearly 80% of drivers express significant anger, aggression, or road rage behind the wheel at least once in the past year. I think at least once. That's probably happening more than once for the average driver. They're encountering a lot of aggression out on the road, they're experiencing it themselves too. It's a very easy emotion to encounter. So what do we do if we find ourselves in a situation where somebody is angry with us? What do we do in this moment? There's a couple of things at the center of this. We would say you should control your emotions. You should make sure that you're acting in a safe manner. And this is going to require that you do some things that we don't really always want to do, like swallow your pride, remain calm. That's hard to do, especially when somebody's angry with you. Don't up the ante. That's a gambling term. It means don't make the situation worse than it is by yelling back at the person who's yelling at you. So don't respond, don't engage, don't push this person to make it worse than it is. And one simple way to do this is don't make eye contact. If I pull up to an intersection and I've inadvertently offended somebody out on the road, I pretend like I'm just looking straight forward and I'm not paying attention to them. I'm not going to make eye contact because it's not going to make the situation better. I'm going to try to get out of their way as soon as I can, let them pass. They're going to be mad. But you got to also understand that they're not just mad at you, they're mad at a lot of other things. And if this made them so angry that they started to yell at you out on the road, that means they've got some other anger issues that are present. And there's other things that are bothering them. It's not just you. There's lots of things that are causing this anger inside of them. All right. So we will end tonight by looking at this video, Caging the Rage. Looking at psychology and rage and how that has an impact on our driving.
Who is the aggressive driver? It could be you. When a parent might have to rush to pick up a child at a daycare center, or when you're running late for a meeting, people realize that the roads are more busy than they've been in many years.
And someone is just behind me, on my tail, on my tail, on my tail. I'm going, in with traffic, cuts ahead of me, is so angry with me that he comes right in front of me and cuts me off. So my choices are, A, go right to his back and do the same thing to him, which I really want to do, but because I have children in my car, I can't do it. I have to say, okay, just, let him go. Maybe something happened, who knows?
Nationwide statistics show that about 1/2 of all accidents involve some kind of aggressive driving. These accidents are avoidable. They don't have to occur.
I see numerous patients who are involved in accidents involving aggressive driving. In fact, just recently, several teenage girls died on a local highway as a consequence of being cut off in their car by an aggressive driver.
Under the laws of the state of New York, a person charged in a road rage incident can be charged under a number of different statutes, but perhaps most commonly, a person would be charged with a violation of Vehicle and Traffic Law Section 1212, which is reckless driving. For a first violation of this section, a person can be sentenced to up to 30 days in jail. As drivers, we've all seen incidents of aggressive driving and road rage. The line is very thin and very easy to cross, but the consequences can be devastating. Many years ago, a young man was driving home from a Halloween party, and while he was driving home, some teenagers threw eggs at his car as a Halloween prank. The young man became very angry, and he decided to give chase to the teenagers. He drove his car at a high rate of speed through a stop sign and collided with another vehicle. In that vehicle were a young mother and the father of a baby. Thankfully, the baby was not in the car, but the young mother and her husband were killed instantly. And for that moment's indiscretion, he lost it all, and he went to prison. Remember, when you're on the road, keep your cool. I don't want to see you ending up on the other side of this bench.
I don't know if most people are aware that it's motor vehicle crashes that are the most common cause of death for young people. And it's among the leading causes of death for all age groups, and many of these injuries are caused by aggressive driving. You may think that it can't happen to you. You may think it's all somebody else's problem. You may think, oh, I'd never be anybody involved in this. I would never drive too fast. I would never cut anybody off. You may not even realize that you may be to blame.
trying to get to the pharmacy before it closed because my daughter was in the back screaming bloody murder with this ear pain. And she's hysterical and my nerves are shot, so I'm picking up speed. And I'm going faster, and I'm doing 50, and I'm doing 60, and I'm doing 70. And I said to her, I have to slow down. The police are going to give me a ticket. And sure enough, there came the police officer.
90% of the people that I pull over are nice, decent, hardworking people. But those are the people that, when they're doing excessive speeds, end up getting into accidents and getting into arguments. We get high speeds, we get people who become impatient because the person in front of them is doing 55 and they want to do 70. They're so accustomed to exceeding the speed limit that when somebody is doing the speed limit, they have to get around that person, and whether it means cutting people off.
I don't want to see you here on a Friday night. I don't want you as my patient. So please, be calm, be careful, and avoid aggressive driving.
Stay on the road safely. Steer clear of aggressive driving and try to take a few deep breaths before you yourself are someone who makes someone else an innocent victim.
Remember, give yourself a little extra time and don't let the aggressive driver be you.
All right. So we've got a couple questions here. Let's go to, let's see here. Who do we, Christian, let's go to you. How many accidents nationwide involve some type of aggressive driving?
1 out of 2.
Yeah, half of every accident involves aggressive driving. Jack, what are some of the consequences of aggressive driving that were discussed in the video?
Jail time.
Jail time? Yeah, very good. Gabe, what's another one?
I only have jail time down.
Okay. So let me give you a scenario, see if you can figure one out here. If you're driving aggressively and your car ends up making contact with another car and you end up killing a passenger, can you think of a consequence that you would have besides jail time?
Losing your license.
Losing your license. Yeah, very good. One, can you think of another consequence? Like if we ran into another car and that person was hurt.
Said death and injury.
Yeah, very good. Then you also have to deal with the fact that you caused that. So there'd be the emotional toll that goes along with that. All right, Emmy, let's go to you. What are some situations that lead to aggressive driving?
Like when the teenagers were egging that guy's car.
Yeah, that would be really frustrating. If that happened to me, I'd be really frustrated. Not a good situation to be in. Colin, what's another situation that could lead a person to aggressive driving?
Just stress.
Stress, yes. Stress of everyday life. Jalen Balint, what's another reason that can lead somebody to aggressive driving?
Getting cut off.
Yeah, that's really frustrating when that happens. Hunter, another situation that can lead us to aggressive driving?
Your passengers in your car.
Yeah, you remember that mother was talking about being distracted by her child that was screaming in the back seat. That is very hard to stay calm when you've got a child that's screaming in the back seat. Believe me, I've driven in that circumstance. It is very hard to stay calm in that moment, especially if you know that your kid is sick or not feeling well. That's a really tough situation to be in. It can lead you to be distracted emotionally, mentally, and you can't fix the problem in that moment. So you have to be stay calm in that moment. Jesse, let's go to you. What are some things you can do to prevent aggressive driving?
Take deep breaths.
Yeah, use relaxation techniques. So yeah, take some deep breaths. Jalen Holstein, what's another way that you can prevent aggressive driving?
Stay calm.
Stay calm. Yeah, very good. Lauren, what's another way?
To give yourself some time to like relax
Yeah, Lauren, that's a huge one. It's especially for me. If I'm going to stay calm behind the wheel, I need to not be stressed, and that means I'm going to need to give myself a little extra time to get there. To give myself enough time to do that. So give yourself some extra time out on the road. All right, share screen. So let's do this as we end our class session tonight. I'd like you to plot by number the things that annoy you. So we've got calm, upset, aggression, and rage. What I'd like you to do is go through these things that are listed there and put the first letter, calm, upset, aggression, or rage. So a C, a U, A, or an R next to each of these, and indicate how you would respond to these items if they happened inside of your car. And it's good to think of this as that this is what somebody else is doing. So this isn't what you're doing. It's what somebody else is doing. You observe somebody else doing this. How do you respond when you see somebody else engaged in these? All right, so at this point, you should be wrapping up that activity. If you don't have that done, we will actually start by going over this at the beginning of class tomorrow. Remember, we have our 2 sessions, one from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock, and then another one from 6 to 8 o'clock. We are at the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Tecumseh, Michigan. So make sure you're there a little bit early so we can get you into class and get you set up. You do need to be able to show that you are not in quarantine, that you haven't been in close contact with a person who's been positive with COVID, You do need to wear a mask the entire time during our session, so make sure that you come prepared with a mask. If you don't have a mask, I can't let you in. And you'll need to keep your mask on properly up over your nose and your mouth through the entire session for the class. Bring something to write with, bring your book with you as well. I would review what we have covered so far in the first 20 pages. And tomorrow night, when we get into class, we'll go over the remaining portion of the book. We'll review a little bit, and then we'll take our test. And that'll be about it for you. We'll pass out certificates. You'll be on your way. If you have any questions for me about how tomorrow will work, then you can hang around. Otherwise, you guys can take off. You guys did great. Have a good night.
Mr. Matson.
Yes, sir. Who's talking?
Gabe.
Okay.
How are you supposed to prove that, like, you aren't in quarantine or whatnot? Like, what do we need to bring?
Oh, just you can't be in quarantine right now. I don't
Okay.
need paper proof.
The way I understood it is that you needed like something to bring or.
Oh, no, you don't need to bring anything with you.
Right.
So yeah, if you would be allowed to be in school, you're allowed to be in this class. Okay, Juan?
So tomorrow we're meeting in person?
Correct. You should have signed up for either the 4 to 6 or the 6 to 8 class.
All right, is it in the email?
It should be in the email, yep.
All right, yep, all right, yep. Thank you.